Hey there, it's your proverbial boy Jeffy coming at you today from San Francisco, California with proverbial boy Milo, who I think wants a treat or something here. Eat this and go away. And just got back from the Las Vegas World Summit where it was hot as balls. And for some reason in San Francisco, it's also hot as balls here today. Need to get a haircut, a lot going on. But before I do that, I want to crack out a quick video just for you. And in this video, I want to explore some of the main reasons why people don't actually get out and practice. Right? What prevents this? Why would people rather sit at home and engage in unproductive, passive behaviors like playing video games or watching television instead of actually going out into the world, meeting people, and actually exercising their social skills? That's what we gonna find out today. Before we dive in, I just want to give a heads up that I'm going to be putting on a free event tomorrow in Los Angeles, California at 7 p.m. with my good friends Julian Blanc and Owen Cook. And at this event, I'm going to be giving you a first look at my upcoming program, Charisma Mastery. And this is something that's been in the works for about a year. You might have heard me talk about it. And this event is going to be the world debut of these concepts and ideas. And for this program, I really wanted to explore the components of verbal game, the components of wit, the components of charisma, and really break them down scientifically in very descriptive ways down to the molecular level. And one thing I've seen time and time again in my programs is that people often have an inability to execute, even if they know the techniques and the material like the back of their hand. You know, I see it all the time on boot camp. You'll tell a guy, okay, do this. He'll go and he won't do it. You give him a little feedback, okay, and that interaction, maybe you could have done this differently. Do you understand? And you look him in the eye, and they're like, yes, I understand. And you can see that they intellectually, logically, they understand what you're saying, but guess what happens? They just go and they do the same dumb shit in the next interaction. They keep doing it. Something is blocking them. Something is paralyzing them and blocking them from taking action. So you can know all the techniques in the world, but if you can't remove those internal blocks, it's not going to matter. And removing those blocks, I truly believe, is the next level of teaching this stuff. And I wanted to create something that was absolutely unprecedented in that area as it relates specifically to social interaction. And so that's what I'm going to be bringing you tomorrow night, Tuesday, 7 p.m. in Los Angeles. And I've been researching this stuff for about a year, like very intensively. This is very dense content. It's university level stuff. So come ready to learn. So that's what I'm going to be bringing you tomorrow. Check it out. Julian and Owen are also going to be there. It's a kind of an Avengers Assemble situation scenario. It's like you're getting Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor all in the same place, but not Milo because Milo's not coming. After that, I'm going to be in Denver on September 5th, and I'm going to be in Dallas on October 3rd. You can check out the link in the description below here to see my full upcoming schedule through the end of the year. So anyway, I think that one huge factor that prevents people from going out and practicing their social skills is something that I call authority dependence. And this idea of authority dependence, I really believe that this does more to rob you of your personal power than pretty much any other factor. And what this does is it creates an addictive need for you to be validated by an external source, whether that's an instructor or whether that's the people that you're interacting with, giving you their feedback. But regardless of what that external source is, the external source determines whether what you did was good or bad. And then based on that judgment, you change your behavior to please that external referent. And so on and so forth. And this becomes a cycle that solidifies those ideas. So there's a couple things about going out and practicing this stuff specifically, you know, as opposed to say practicing guitar or practicing, any other skill that makes it a little bit unique. In social interaction, we are our own instrument. We are the instrument. So it can be tough to tell, number one, what we're actually doing as we're interacting, and then number two, how well we're doing it. So as a result of this, it's very easy for you to become increasingly dependent on those external reference to inform us. So essentially what happens is your sense of self-worth gets handed over to others, and in the process, you lose touch with the development and validation of your own process. So after a while of this, you start to think of yourself as a product, right? You start to think of yourself as this fixed thing, which you're not. You are not a product. You are a process. You are an ongoing process of development, in development. So if you become thinking of yourself as an end product, that removes you further from an interacting relationship with your process, which is, of course, not fixed. It's ongoing and ever changing. So then you go out and you're carrying this load of conditioning. You're carrying this load of conditioning, and now you go out to practice. But what happens is you're only striving for the best result while simultaneously being your own judge, right? You're trying to be free-flowing, but you're also judging yourself is essentially what happens. Now, it's important to note, and you probably are aware of this on some level, but judging in process is actually antithetical to our best end result, right? I always say analysis is for after the fact. And this is why on my live programs, I do very little in the way of giving them feedback during the actual live in-field portion. I don't really do a lot of okay, let's break down, after every interaction, let's break down in granular detail what transpired there for a number of reasons. Number one, it takes you out of your emotional flow state and gets you in a more logical headspace. Number two, it can stifle social momentum, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I always say analysis is for after the fact. We'll do a pre-brief where I describe kind of things we want to focus on when we go in. And then I might do a halftime, which is just like it sounds. I'll take them aside, about halfway through the night and say, okay, this is what I see thus far. This is what we should focus on for the remainder of the evening. Okay, break, back in. And then they continue. And then maybe at the end of the night, if everybody's still there, we'll have a more thorough sort of debrief breakdown of what happened where I can provide my kind of critical insights and feedback. So analysis is for after the fact. So when you experience this cycle of judgment that results in the development of this authority dependence, you go out and your practice process is either experienced as unjudgeable, and given our conditioned need for judgment, hence pointless and frustrating to you, or we judge as we're practicing. And of course, that interferes with the process and pretty much ensures that the product or the outcome, and hence the judgment, is negative. So after a while of this, your practice time gains negative associations, and then over time, it just becomes avoided, right? And this is extremely common. It's no wonder there's so little useful practice being done. And the minimal improvement that you see in most people over time actually attests to this. Very few people, there's so many people that go out and they just go out, and then they really don't get any better. Or they don't go out at all and they don't get any better. So again, this attests to this. So you want to start thinking about balancing authority dependence. So if I'm teaching, I might say something like back in the day, I used to kind of really lean on boot camp on the sergeant asshole persona, right? Kind of this whip cracking disciplinarian who put a boot in your ass and motivated you and pushed you to really, really go for it. And I think that's useful. I really think that some people respond to that very well, and at a certain level, it's necessary. People want to be pushed. That's one of the reasons why they come and get coached. So at the beginning of the program, I'd always say, there's a reason why we call this boot camp as opposed to summer camp for little punks. Do what your instructor says. And, I kind of want to drill that in. And I used to do that very, very heavily, as I said. But nowadays, on the second or third night, I might say something like, look, tonight, you can do whatever you want to do. If I suggest an exercise and you don't want to do it, that's fine. Just do whatever you want. You don't need any permission from me to try anything that you want with your own process. Why? It's your process. It's not mine. I can't have your experience for you. I can only offer guidance in working with it. And whatever you choose to do is simply information for your own awareness and growth. And any results or judgment, like results judgment of it, whether it's yours or mine or anyone else's, the people you interact with, whatever, it's meaningless in that context. So again, just have your mental, intellectual mind leave its judgmental hat at the door, come on in and play. And I think that that's a much better, a much healthier environment for them to exercise and again, move into those unknown areas that they're unfamiliar with and just allow themselves to fail. You have to allow yourself to fail without judgment, right? Now look, guidance is of course helpful, right? Whether it's from the teacher, myself, or whether it's from your own intellect observing. But first, get those blocks to your power out of the way so it can flow, right? Only then do you find what you're capable of. And it might be something that the intellect might never have guessed. I have 2 rules on boot camp, NBC and GTF. Never be careful and go too far. Never be careful and go too far. You have to expand beyond your limits, right? You have to expand those conditioned boundaries. Now, look, an important distinction here. This doesn't mean going out and like doing intentional damage to yourself or intentional damage to other people. It just means using your energy with a freedom and power that you've never experienced up till that point, right? And because you haven't experienced, it's going to be surrounded with inhibitions and all these kinds of inner entanglements. So if you want to learn to work with different energies, you have to first experience them, right? Now, as a teacher, one thing that I'm always striving for, I strive to maintain an attitude as free of judgment as possible. I always tell people at the very beginning, right after I say, this is boot camp, not summer camp for little punks, I say, look, my role here is not to judge you. You're not going to be the best student I've ever seen. You're not going to be the worst, right? All I'm trying to do is get you the best result that I can in a 3-day period. All I'm trying to do is communicate to you what you're actually doing while being clearly descriptive and non-judgmental. So it's only then that you stop asking permission to do something different with your energy. And when students, when they leave the boot camp, you gotta understand there's gonna be nobody there to help them maintain that non-judgmental environment. And once people realize that, once you realize that you are responsible for creating that unpleasant, judgmental personal exercise space in your daily life, that's when you can begin creating a non-judgmental environment of your own. So you can go out and practice and enjoy it and learn, right? Judgment prevents movement into the unknown. All learning is movement into the unknown, whether it's externally, learning how to interact with the world, or whether it's internally, learning how to open yourself up to different energies, learning how your inner emotional process interacts with the intellectual process that makes decisions about how you express yourself and so on, right? I think judgment is important, okay? But it's also important to make a distinction between condemnation and discernment. Right, discernment is valuable. Again, you have to know what choices to make, right? You have to, and these are different ends of a continuum spectrum that constitutes judgment. There's again, the condemning, generalized "I suck" or "I'll look foolish if I do this," and then there's discernment. Well, this would be the best choice in this situation, right? But that's the thing. You want to discern after the fact. If we're talking about analysis of your performance and what you need to work on going forward, the analysis, the discernment comes after, not before or during. Pre-evaluative judgment actually keeps you from experiencing whatever choice you might pre-evaluate. You're like, well, if I do that, I'll look silly. If I do that, I might get in a confrontation. You don't know that. It's pre-evaluative judgment. It's not useful in terms of when we're talking about learning. So to exercise or to practice, it's interesting because we actually have to learn, we actually have to do the opposite of what we've been conditioned to do for our whole lives, which is to hide our entanglements, which is to hide the ways that we're stifling ourselves, right? So in practicing, you're trying to actively seek out and expose them, which can be very frightening for a lot of people. Very, very frightening. It was for me, it still is to this day. But remember something that I call the growth cycle of ours. okay? Remember, excuse me, remember to allow enough energies to flow through your projective modes, okay? Your speech, your facial expressiveness, your gestures, and your tactile, your kinesthetic interaction. Again, remember to allow enough energy to flow through those modes to reveal the entanglements so we can recognize them and learn to release and or replace them with new relationships so we can reintegrate them into our field of choice potential. So if you think about it, it goes around and around and around. And this describes a sort of a spiral path, if you will. And the spiral is a universal pattern of growth, right? Spirals are the actual shape of chaos energy evolving order from chaos, right? Growth is not this like ladder-like linear process. It's not at all. Old steps in growth are energy interactions which you return to and revisit in a more complex form from a higher point on your development spiral, right? So the patterns of interaction of all of our projective modes change as we develop, and these interactive patterns constitute a known model to draw on in the future as we learn other ways. So anyway, a bit dense there. Hope that was of value to you. Like I said, I'm going to expound on these ideas a lot more for several hours tomorrow night, Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. in Los Angeles, California. Hope to see you there. Got a lot of packing to do. And this is Jeffy reminding you to get out there and make the mids.